She had been buying fish for 6 months, only to discover the horrifying truth behind what her children were eating. You won't believe what was in those baskets. The first time Mama Adana saw what was really in Eze's basket, she vomited until her throat burned like fire. But let me start from the beginning, when she was still innocent, still believing that all fish sellers were honest people like herself. Mama Adana had sold vegetables in Onitsha market for 15 years. Every morning, she would wake at 4 o'clock, her bones aching from sleeping on her thin mat, and walk 2 miles to the riverside market. Her hands were rough like tree bark from washing endless bundles of ugu and water leaf. Her back bent permanently forward from years of bending over her table, but she never complained. This was how she fed her 3 children after her husband died from the sickness that made his body waste away to nothing. The market was her life. She knew every seller, every corner, every smell. The sweet rot of overripe plantains, the sharp tang of fresh pepper, the earthy smell of dried crayfish, and always the fish. Eze's fish stall stood 3 tables away from hers. He was a tall man with a smile that showed too many teeth, like a crocodile. He had appeared in the market 6 months ago, and within weeks, his business was booming. His fish was always cheaper than everyone else's, always fresher looking, always abundant, even when other sellers complained that the river was giving them nothing. Mama Adana, he would call out every morning, his voice smooth as palm oil. Come and buy fish for your children. See how big and fresh they are. I give you special price because we're neighbors. At first, she bought from him. The fish looked perfect, fat, with clear eyes and red gills. Her children loved it. Little Chioma would clap her hands with joy. Mama, this fish sweet well, she would say, licking her fingers. But other sellers began to whisper. That Eze, where does he get so much fish? Old Mama Ngozi muttered one afternoon, her eyes narrow with suspicion. Even the professional fishermen are complaining that the river is not giving, yet his baskets are always full. Mama Adana had replied, always wanting to see the good in people. Mama Ngozi had sucked her teeth, that long knowing sound that means you are too innocent for this wicked world. My sister, there are things in this life that are not what they seem. That man's fish, I cannot put my finger on it, but something is wrong, very wrong. Mama Adana had laughed it off then. But 2 weeks later, on that terrible Thursday morning, when the sky was heavy with rain that refused to fall, she would remember those words and wish to God that she had listened. That Thursday, Mama Adana arrived at the market earlier than usual. The night had been restless. Her youngest, Emeka, had coughed throughout the darkness, and sleep had run away from her eyes. She decided to come early, arrange her vegetables, and perhaps close her eyes for a small rest before customers arrived. The market was still dark, lit only by a few kerosene lamps. Most sellers hadn't arrived yet. As she walked past Eze's store, she heard sounds coming from behind it. Strange sounds that made her skin tighten with goosebumps. Scraping, splashing water, and then a smell. Not the clean smell of fish, but something else. Something that reminded her of the bush behind her village, where people whispered that witches gathered at midnight. Curiosity is a powerful thing. It grabbed Mama Adana by the throat and pulled her forward. She told herself she was just checking, just making sure everything was all right. But her hands were trembling as she moved closer to the sound. Behind Eze's stall, hidden by stacked baskets and old tarpaulin, she saw him, and she saw what he was washing, what he was arranging so carefully in his baskets, what he had been selling to her children, to the whole market for 6 months. Her scream shattered the morning silence like broken glass. But what did Mama Adana see? The truth was darker than anyone could imagine.
Eze's head snapped up at her scream, his eyes catching the lamplight like an animal caught in a hunter's trap. You, he hissed, dropping what he held in his hands. It fell to the ground with a wet slap that made Mama Adana's stomach turn over. She couldn't move. Her feet had become roots, planted in that spot by pure horror. Her mouth opened and closed like a dying fish, but no more sounds came out. Her mind was screaming one thing over and over. Not fish. Not fish. Those are not fish. What lay scattered around Eze's washing basin? What filled his baskets with their bellies pale in the lamplight? What she had been buying and cooking and feeding to her precious children, they were not fish at all. They were water snakes, but not ordinary snakes. These were the fat, pale ones that lived in the filthy gutters and drainage ditches of the city. The ones that fed on refuse, on dead things, on waste that made even dogs turn away. The ones that old people warned could carry sickness and death in their flesh. But Eze had carved them expertly. He had cut off their heads, removed their skin in strips, shaped their bodies to look like catfish. In the dim market light, to unsuspecting buyers, they looked perfect. Even their smell, he must have washed them with something, some chemical or herb that masked the truth. You saw nothing, Eze said quietly, standing up slowly. His friendly market voice was gone. What replaced it was cold, flat, dangerous. You hear me, woman, you saw nothing. Mama Adana's voice finally returned, but it came out as a whisper. My children, I fed this to my children. The reality hit her like a slap. For 6 months, 6 months of those things in her soup, in Chioma's little belly, in Emeka's growing body, in her own flesh. The thought made her stomach heave. She bent over and vomited right there, her body rejecting everything inside it, as if it could somehow purge the months of poison. Stupid woman, Eze spat, stepping closer. You think you are the only one who knows? You think I am the only one doing this? Ha! He laughed, a sound with no joy in it. There are 20 fish sellers in this market. How many do you think are selling real fish? In this economy, when people want cheap food, someone must provide it. I am just a businessman. You are a devil, Mama Adana gasped, wiping her mouth with her wrapper. Fear was giving way to anger now, hot and bright in her chest. You are feeding people poison. Children are eating this, and they are not dying, are they? Eze's voice turned smooth again, reasonable, like he was explaining something simple to a child. People eat it, they are satisfied, they come back, no wahala. The problem is only in your head. He moved closer, and Mama Adana could smell palm wine on his breath, mixed with something bitter. Here is what will happen, Eze continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. You will go to your stall. You will open your vegetables like every day. You will forget what you saw here. Because if you don't, he paused, letting his eyes drift toward the direction of the main road, where Mama Adana's children would soon be walking to school. Accidents happen in this city every day. Children playing in the road, cars moving too fast. You understand what I am saying? Ice water flooded Mama Adana's veins. He was threatening her children, her babies. You cannot, Eze interrupted. I can do anything. I have friends everywhere. Police, market union, even the health inspectors. You think they don't know what happens here? Everybody is eating from the pot, Mama. Everybody. If you make trouble, you will lose more than you can imagine. If you are watching this and your heart is pounding like Mama Adana's heart, if you want to know how she escapes this nightmare, subscribe to this channel now. Press that button because this story gets more intense and you don't want to miss what happens next. Trust me, Mama Adana stood there, trapped between two impossible choices. Stay silent and let people continue eating poison, or speak up and risk her children's lives. Her mind raced like a trapped rat. She thought of Chioma's laugh, Emeka's cough that wouldn't stop, her oldest, Chidi, who was studying so hard to pass his exams. Everything in her wanted to run, to grab her children and disappear into the city where Eze couldn't find them. But where would they go? She had no money, no relatives in other towns. This market was their life, their survival. I will not say anything, she heard herself whisper, hating the words as they left her mouth. Eze smiled his crocodile smile. Smart woman. You see, we can all be friends here. In fact, let me give you some free fish today. The real kind, because we are neighbors. The mockery in his voice made her want to claw his eyes out. But she turned and walked away on legs that felt like water, her whole body shaking. She went to her stall and sat down heavily on her low stool. The market was beginning to wake up now. Other sellers arriving, greeting each other, the normal morning sounds that now seemed like they were happening in another world, a world where people didn't feed children poison and threaten their mothers. How could she keep silent? But how could she speak? The morning sun rose indifferent to her agony. Customers came and went. She sold her vegetables mechanically, her mouth moving with greetings while her mind screamed. Every time someone walked past Eze's stall, every time she heard him calling out his lies, fresh fish, best price, she felt bile rise in her throat. By afternoon, she had made a decision, a dangerous one. She would find proof, real proof that even Eze's friends couldn't ignore, and then she would burn his evil business to the ground, no matter what it cost her. But Mama Adana didn't know that Eze was watching her, seeing the determination growing in her eyes, and he was already planning his next move. That night, Mama Adana couldn't eat. She sat in her small room while her children devoured the rice and stew she had prepared, made with real fish from Mama Ngozi's stall, fish she had watched the old woman clean herself. Every bite her children took used to bring her joy. Now she watched them like a hawk, fear coiled in her belly like a snake. What damage had already been done? Emeka's constant cough, was it from those things she had been feeding them? Chioma sometimes complained of stomach pain, and Chidi, her firstborn, had been looking tired lately, his skin losing its glow. Mama, you are not eating? Chidi asked, looking up from his plate with concern in his young eyes. I am not hungry, my son. You eat. You need strength for your studies. After they slept, curled together on the mat they shared, Mama Adana sat outside under the dim bulb that barely lit their compound. Her neighbor, Sister Blessing, was returning from her evening shift at the pharmacy. Mama Adana, good evening, oh. Why are you sitting here like someone died? Are you well? An idea sparked in Mama Adana's mind. Sister Blessing worked at a pharmacy. She would know about poisons, about what bad food could do to the body. Sister Blessing, please sit. I need to ask you something. If someone was eating something bad, something poisonous, but small, for many months, what would happen? Sister Blessing's face became serious. Poisonous like how? Rat poison? Bad medicine? Not medicine, food. Food that looks good but is actually something dirty, something that should not be eaten. Like spoiled food? Worse than spoiled, like animals that are not meant to eat, ones that feed on waste and carry disease. Sister Blessing sat down heavily on the bench beside her. Mama, this is serious. Such things can damage the liver slowly, the kidneys, can cause infection inside the body that grows and grows, can make person weak, make them sick all the time. Children especially, their bodies are still growing. It can affect their blood, their organs. Some sicknesses from such things, they don't show for years, but when they come, she shook her head gravely. They are killers. Mama Adana's hands clenched into fists. If someone was selling such things, claiming they are normal food, what can be done? Report to health ministry, to police. That is a serious crime. People can die from such wickedness. But if the person has connections, if health inspectors and police are collecting money from them? Sister Blessing was quiet for a long moment. Then you need proof that is too strong to ignore. You need to make noise so loud that the big people in government must respond. You need media, radio, newspaper, those people who like to expose bad things. You need to catch the person red-handed with witnesses who cannot be bribed. And if the person threatens your family? Sister Blessing turned to look at her directly. Mama Adana, what is happening? Are you in trouble? Mama Adana wanted to tell her everything, but fear wrapped around her throat like fingers. If she told Sister Blessing, would the news spread? Would it reach Eze? Would her children pay the price? I am just asking. I heard some talk in the market. Sister Blessing didn't believe her. Mama Adana could see it in her eyes. But the woman was wise enough not to push. Be careful, she said finally. Very careful. When you fight with the devil, you must be smarter than him. Otherwise, you will lose more than the battle. Over the next 3 days, Mama Adana became a spy in her own market. She watched Eze with eyes that had learned to see. She noticed patterns. Eze arrived very early, before most sellers, carrying covered baskets from his van. He walked quickly behind his stall where people couldn't see clearly. He talked often with 2 market union officials who came by his stall more than others, their pockets always bulging a bit more after their visits. She also watched the other fish sellers, studying them with new suspicious eyes. Were they all doing it? Was Eze right that many were selling lies? Mama Ngozi, she decided, was clean. The old woman bought her fish from her sons who were fishermen. Mama Adana had known her family for years. But there were 3 other sellers, newer ones like Eze, whose prices were also suspiciously low, who never seemed to run out of stock, who attracted customers with fish that looked almost too perfect. On the 4th day, Mama Adana went to the newspaper office. It was a small building in the commercial district with a faded sign that read, The People's Voice. Inside, young journalists sat at old desks covered with papers and coffee-stained cups. I want to report something, she told the receptionist. Something bad happening in Onitsha market. She was directed to a young man named Chukuma, who looked barely older than her Chidi. He had eager eyes behind cracked glasses. Madam, what do you want to report? She told him everything. The words poured out like water from a broken pipe. What she saw, what Eze was selling, how long it had been happening, her fears about other sellers doing the same. Chukuma listened and his pen moved rapidly on his notepad. When she finished, he sat back and whistled low. This is serious, very serious. But madam, you understand that we need proof. We cannot just print accusations. We need photographs, samples for testing, official confirmation from health authorities. I can get you proof, Mama Adana said, her voice stronger than she felt. But you must promise me something. When you publish this story, you must make it big, so big that even the corrupt officials cannot hide it. Can you do that? Chukuma leaned forward, his eyes bright with the hunger of a journalist who had found a real story. Madam, if what you are saying is true, this will be front page, I promise you. But you must be very, very careful. People who do such things, they are dangerous. Do you have somewhere safe to go if things get hot?
Mama Adana thought about her small room, her 3 children, her whole life contained in one market store. I will find somewhere, she lied. They made a plan. In 2 days, very early in the morning before the market woke up fully, Mama Adana would signal Chukwuma. He would come with a photographer and they would catch Eze in the act. They would get clear pictures of what he was really selling. They would take samples for laboratory testing. The health ministry will have to respond when we publish, Chukwuma assured her. No matter how much money changes hands, they cannot ignore a front-page scandal. As Mama Adana walked home that evening, her heart was both lighter and heavier. Lighter because she had taken action, heavier because she knew the war was just beginning. That night, she lay awake listening to her children breathe. Chioma murmured something in her sleep. Emeka coughed, that dry cough that never quite went away. Chidi shifted, his long legs bent uncomfortably on their shared mat. Forgive me, she whispered to them in the darkness. Forgive me for what I must do, but I cannot let that wicked man continue to poison our people. But someone had seen Mama Adana enter the newspaper office, and before the sun rose on the day of her planned exposure, she would discover that Eze's reach was longer than she ever imagined.
The knock came at midnight. Mama Adana jerked awake, her heart already pounding. No one knocks at midnight with good news. "Who is there?" she called out, her voice barely steady. "Police, open the door." Her blood turned to ice. She looked at her sleeping children, then at the tin door that separated them from whoever was outside. Slowly, she stood and wrapped her cloth around herself. "What do you want? My children are sleeping." "We have questions about your business. Open the door now, or we will break it." Her hands shook as she unlatched the door. 3 policemen stood there, their uniforms wrinkled, their eyes cold. Behind them, in the shadows, she could see someone else. Even in the darkness, she recognized that shape, that crocodile posture. Eze. "Madam," the tallest policeman said, pushing past her into the room, "we have received reports that you are selling expired food products in the market. We need to search your premises." "That is a lie," Mama Adana protested. "I sell vegetables, fresh vegetables. Everyone knows this." But they were already tearing through her small room, throwing her things around. Her children woke up crying, frightened by the strange men and the violence of the search. "Mama, what is happening?" Chidi tried to stand, tried to protect his younger siblings, but he was just a boy, just a thin, confused boy in his worn sleeping shorts. "It's okay, my son, don't be afraid," she lied, gathering Chioma and Emeka to her. 10 minutes later, one of the policemen emerged from behind her small cooking area, holding a package wrapped in black plastic. "Aha! What is this?" Mama Adana's eyes widened. "I don't know what that is. It's not mine." "You are lying," the policeman said flatly. "This was found in your property. We need to take you to the station for questioning." "No, please, my children, who will watch them?" "That is not our problem. Let's go." From outside, she heard Ize's voice, smooth and victorious. "Thank you, officers. I am always happy to help the law do its duty. We cannot allow bad people to spoil our market's reputation." The setup was perfect. They had planted evidence in her home. They would detain her, discredit her. By the time she got out, if she got out, no one would believe anything she said. She would be known as the woman who sold bad food, who tried to frame innocent Eze to cover her own crimes. "Please," she begged, tears streaming down her face now. "At least let me find someone to watch my children." "You have 5 minutes." She woke Sister Blessing, who came running in her nightgown, her face shocked. "They are arresting you? For what?" "It's a lie. All lies. Please watch my children. Don't let them go to the market. Keep them inside. And please," I lowered my voice while the policemen were waiting impatiently at the door. "Please call the journalist at the People's Voice. Chukwuama, tell him what happened. Tell him to be careful. Tell him they know." Sister Blessing's eyes widened with understanding. "Ah, Mama, what have you gotten yourself into?" "I was trying to do the right thing. God help me. I was just trying to do the right thing." They took her to the police station and threw her in a cell that smelled of urine and despair. She wasn't alone. 2 other women sat in the corner, one with a swollen eye, the other staring blankly at the wall. Mama Adana sat on the cold concrete floor and wept, not just for herself, but for her children who would wake up confused and frightened, for the people in the market who would continue eating poison, for the truth that seemed to be dying before it could even be born. Hours passed. No one came to question her. No one came at all. This wasn't about justice. This was about silencing her. They would keep her here for days, weeks maybe, until her story was forgotten, until Eze had time to cover all his tracks. Morning light began to creep through the small barred window. Mama Adana's body ached from the cold flow. Her mind was exhausted from worry. She had lost. Eze had won. The wicked would continue to prosper while the righteous suffered.
She was about to close her eyes, to escape into sleep, when she heard voices outside, raised voices, an argument. "I don't care who you know. This is a matter of public health. You will release that woman now, or I will make such a scandal that even your superintendent cannot protect you. You cannot just barge in here and make demands. Watch me. I have already called the state health commissioner. The story goes to print in 2 hours, and I promise you, if that woman is still in this cell when my newspaper hits the stands, I will make sure every policeman in this station is named and shamed." Chukwuamwa, the journalist, had come. But he wasn't alone. More voices came. Women's voices. Market women. Where is she? Where is Mama Adana? Mama Ngozi and others, her fellow sellers. "We know what that devil is doing. We know what you are trying to cover up. Release her now." The cell door opened and a very unhappy policeman gestured for Mama Adana to come out. "You are lucky," he muttered. "You have friends in high places." In the station's front room, she found an army. Chukwuama with his camera, Mama Ngozi with 10 other market women, and someone else, a woman in a sharp suit with government identification hanging around her neck. "Mrs. Adana," she said, "I am Dr. Okonkwo from the State Ministry of Health. I understand you have information about food safety violations in Onitsha market." Mama Adana looked at all these faces, these people who had come for her, who believed her, who were willing to stand against the darkness. She straightened her back, wiped her tears, and found her voice. "Yes," she said clearly, "I have information and I am ready to tell everything." The battle was about to explode into the open, but Eze was not finished fighting, and his final move would be the most dangerous of all.
By noon, Onitsha Market was swarming with health inspectors, journalists, and curious crowds that blocked the narrow pathways between stalls. Mama Adana led them straight to Eze's store, her head high despite her sleepless night in the cell. Chukwuma's camera flashed constantly. Dr. Okonkwo walked beside her, flanked by 2 health inspectors carrying testing equipment and sample bags. Eze's store was closed. The baskets were covered, but he was there, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, that crocodile smile nowhere to be seen. Instead, his face was dark with rage. "You have made a terrible mistake," he said quietly to Mama Adana as the crowd pressed closer. "The only mistake I made was staying silent for even one day," she replied. "Search everything," Dr. Okonkwo ordered her team. "I want samples of every product, photographs of everything." What they found made the crowd gasp and then erupt in angry shouts. Behind the store, hidden under tarpaulins, were buckets of water snakes, gutter eels, and other creatures that made people's stomachs turn. There were sharp knives still stained with scales. There were bottles of chemicals. One inspector held up a container and read the label with disgust: "Industrial bleach for cleaning and disguising the smell." But worse was what they found in Eze's van, packed behind the market. Dozens of fish already prepared, ready to be sold that morning. Under proper light, with health officials examining them, the truth was undeniable. These were not fish. These were vermin shaped to look like food. "This man has been selling this for how long?" Dr. Okonkwo demanded. 6 months, maybe longer. "And he is not alone," Mama Adana answered. "Maybe longer. And he is not alone." She pointed to 3 other stalls. Those sellers too, they worked together. The crowd's anger was a living thing now, growing and swelling. People who had been buying from Eze for months, feeding these things to their families, felt betrayed in the deepest way possible. Some women were crying. Some men were shouting for immediate justice. "You witch!" one woman screamed at Eze. "My daughter has been sick for months. The doctors could not find what was wrong. You poisoned my child." "I will kill you," a man roared, pushing forward, but the police held him back. Eze tried to run. He pushed through the crowd, desperate, his smooth business act completely shattered. But market women are strong, and they were angry. They caught him before he reached the road. They held him, their grip like iron, their faces promising that if the law did not punish him properly, they would find their own justice. "Please," Eze was begging now, all his arrogance gone. "Please, I was just trying to survive. You don't understand how hard business is. Everyone is doing it." "Lies," Mama Ngozi spat. "Not everyone is evil like you. Not everyone poisons children for profit." The police arrested Eze and the 3 other sellers Mama Adana had identified. Dr. Okonkwo sealed all the evidence. Chukwuma took photos of everything: the creatures in the buckets, the chemicals, the prepared fish, Eze's face twisted with fear and rage. "This will be front page," Chukwuma told Mama Adana. "National news. Your bravery has saved countless lives." But Mama Adana wasn't thinking about news or bravery. She was thinking about her children, about all the children in Onitsha who had been eating poison, about the long-term damage that might have been done. "Dr. Okonkwo, what about the people who ate this? What will happen to them?"
The doctor's face was grave. "We need to set up a medical screening program. Anyone who bought from these sellers should be examined. Some effects can be treated if caught early. Others," she paused, "others we can only monitor and hope for the best." The market closed early that day. The health ministry posted notices. Anyone who had purchased fish from the identified sellers in the past year should report to the general hospital for free screening and treatment. The government, embarrassed by the scandal, was forced to act decisively. Over the next few weeks, the full scale of the horror emerged. Hundreds of people had unknowingly consumed those creatures. Dozens showed signs of parasitic infections, liver damage, and other health problems. 3 children were hospitalized with severe symptoms. Thankfully, with treatment, all survived. Mama Adana's own children were tested. Emeka's persistent cough was indeed related to a mild lung infection from contaminants. Chioma had intestinal parasites. Even Chidi showed elevated liver enzymes, but they caught it in time. With medicine and proper food, the doctors assured her they would fully recover. The trial was swift. The evidence was overwhelming. Eze and his accomplices received 10 years in prison each. The corrupt police officers and health inspectors who had protected them were dismissed and charged. The market union officials who had taken bribes were removed from office. But more importantly, the scandal sparked nationwide reform. Markets across the state, then across the country, faced sudden inspections. New regulations were enforced. Consumer protection agencies that had been sleeping suddenly woke up and started doing their jobs. The People's Voice newspaper ran a series of articles. They interviewed Mama Adana, who became known as the market whistleblower. Other sellers in other markets, emboldened by her courage, came forward with their own stories of corruption and dangerous practices. A movement was born. 6 months after that terrible morning when she first saw the truth, Mama Adana sat at her vegetable stall, watching her children play nearby during their school holiday. Chioma was laughing again, her stomach troubles gone. Emeka's cough had completely disappeared. Chidi was thriving, had passed his exams with excellent marks. Sister Blessing stopped by with hot akara and bread. "You are a hero, you know," she said, setting the food down. "I am not a hero," Mama Adana replied quietly. "I am just a mother who could not let wickedness continue when I knew the truth." "That is exactly what a hero is," Sister Blessing insisted. Mama Ngozi joined them, settling her old bones onto a stool with a sigh. "The market is cleaner now. People are more careful. Everyone checks their suppliers more closely. You changed things, Mama Adana." "We all changed things," Mama Adana corrected. "When you all came to the police station for me, when you stood with me against Eze, that is what made the difference. One voice alone can be silenced, but many voices together, that cannot be ignored." A young woman approached the stall timidly. "Excuse me, are you Mama Adana, the one in the newspaper?" "Yes, my daughter. I just wanted to thank you. My son was very sick. The doctors didn't know why until your story came out. We got him tested. They found parasites. He is better now. You saved my child's life." Tears were rolling down her face. "Thank you, thank you." After she left, Mama Adana had to wipe her own eyes. This was why it had all been worth it. The fear, the threats, the night in that terrible cell. Because somewhere, children were healthier, families were safer. The wicked had been stopped. That evening, as she walked home with her children, Emeka skipping ahead while Chioma held her hand and Chidi carried their market bags, Mama Adana felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The battle had been hard. The victory had cost her sleep and safety and sanity for those terrible weeks. But looking at her healthy children, knowing that hundreds of other children were also safe now, she knew she would do it all again. Because that is what love does. It stands up, it speaks out, it fights. Even when the enemy seems bigger, richer, more powerful. Even when the cost is high. Even when you are just one poor market woman against the darkness. Sometimes that is enough.